I will just wait for another minute or two in case more people are. I see people are joining, so we'll wait for a minute or two extra.
Recording in progress.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are back with another interesting online event from IBC Media. IBC 2.0 is the second edition of a massive 5-year agenda, and we are enabling the largest blockchain ecosystem initiative in India. Now, I'm sure most of you have attended our workshops. However, for today's session, we have a new interactive theme. This is an open forum for discussion on Web3 with Mr. Praveen Thakur. So Praveen is the COO and CPO of IBC Media and a veteran in the industry, having spent over 25 years in Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 spaces. He has worked across the geographies in North America, in technology and fintech space. He has expertise in product and technology. He is an AWS certified solution architect at professional and associate levels, a certified blockchain expert, CFA level 1, and alumnus of INSEAD. Praveen has been working in the blockchain space in DeFi, NFT, and Metaverse. I would like to welcome Praveen and take this conversation forward. Hello.
Yes, thank you, Dhruv. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you, Dhruv, and a very warm welcome to all the people who have come here today. So before we get into Web3, can I ask you a question and maybe you can respond in the chat? How many of you have some familiarity with Web3 in general? Okay, so I think while we wait for some responses, the structure of the discussion that I wanted to go for today, basically, is to get a basic understanding of Web3 and what really has led us to this stage from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3, and why is this Web 3 important? Why should we really care about it at all? And then we will try to look at the various scenarios in which this Web3 is going to be very important. And last but not the least, what exactly is there for you, and how do you kind of get into this space working in Web3, and what are the possibilities here? What exactly can you expect from this space? So this is an hour session, and I would encourage you to kind of put your questions in chat, and toward the end of the session we can also look at having some interactive sessions. So, guys, I think it is very important for us to appreciate, where exactly is the technology landscape right now, and what really has happened in last 30 to 40 years. Now, in 30 to 40 years, if you really go and look at the way internet has evolved, you will. I'm not sure many of you may not really may not have witnessed that stage. But I can tell you from my experience, web really has been evolving, quite progressively, and especially, if you really look at the way internet used to be when the computers were pretty isolated in the beginning. Then a stage came where computers started connecting with each other. Then different protocols came, such as HTTP, as you all know. Then there were different protocols developed for different purposes. You had SMTP for email. Then you had FTP for file transfer. So all these things started coming into picture. But then in the early days, in approximately 1990s, what really was the scenario where the most of the internet was used for displaying static information. For example, you could go and display the menu of your restaurant. You could go and display some report cards. You could go and just display the news. All these things. I mean, the information that was being shared with the world was being created by few individuals or central entities. Now, I still remember when these things started and people really started getting a feel of this, and it itself looked very transformative. But then what happened in this whole process, that the power started getting centralized in few servers, basically, if you really look at it, in that way. And then only the second stage started coming when you have all the big, big names that you see today. These are all, they started appearing. And what they gave in essence is an ability to people to contribute to the content creation. Now, that might look a very simple thing, but if you really see, that was very, very transformative in a way that the content creation got distributed. Now, imagine instead of few people, bunch of people who were responsible for creating content, now the whole population can create content. And that's where your Wikipedia came. Then people started transacting on these, and then Amazon came, Facebook came, all these entities started coming in, and with all of them having very different utilities. And they started, influencing our life in very, very different ways. And today, if you really see, all of us must, and I think, recognize that our life is very, very incomplete. When we don't see the systems around us. Can you imagine living without, Amazon, for that matter? It's very difficult. So now this, while on one hand, all these central entities, they, gave a lot of freedom. They made our lives so easy, and, we started enjoying the benefits of all these utilities. But then the next stage, people started thinking about that the data that we are creating, the content that we are creating, are we being, compensated for that creation? Because if I am creating something, it is essentially my creation. So the person who should be benefited the most out of this creation should be me, nobody else, right? So if you really see web, but exchange of value was not there. Okay. Now, the exchange of value, the exchange of ownership, all these things started becoming very, very important questions. Such as, most of these centralized entities right now, what you see in Web2 space, the central entities are the people who are going to be benefited the most out of the whole process. If you must have realized, or you must have seen in very various scenarios in which your data becomes asset for someone. Now, that central entity basically uses that data to earn money or monetize it for ad based revenues, advertisement based revenues. That's one example I am giving you. But then otherwise also the proportion of the profit that gets shared with the people who create these content, it's very less. Now, when this question started coming in people's mind, then it ultimately became a big problem. And fortunately, in 2008 and 9, we had somebody called Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who that person or group of persons was or were, basically, who came up with a concept which made people to exchange value, from one person to another person in the form of Bitcoin by combining several technologies that existed earlier. But all of those technologies were combined in such a way that this started, making few things possible which were not possible earlier. Now, while this was a fantastic, I would say innovation, but then this really had some limitations. I'm trying to go from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3 and how exactly we have been progressing. And then we'll try to see what really does it mean to us. So what happened? The Bitcoin was a very, very innovative, I would say, solution that really came into existence. And people could start visualizing and realizing what this could, lead to. And it was definitely money movement was one of the most important things, which really had, I would say, very, very important use case in the lives of people, especially, if you really look at the whole planet, there are many countries and continents where most of the people are still unbanked. They don't have, they are not participating in the formalized economy, and all these guys are left out of the mainstream. So Bitcoin was conceived or thought to be a mechanism in which, these people could be brought into mainstream. I mean, that was one thing that really struck the mind of all the, thought leaders in this space. Now, while this was a fantastic innovation, as I was saying earlier, but then this had some issue that, it was very limited. It had very limited applicability. Now, while money is one thing which is important, but then more than that, the question came here that could we extrapolate this solution to something which is much more generic in nature? And what it really means, if you really have something which is too generic in nature, then what happens that the real life use cases start coming under the umbrella of the technology. And that is where in the next innovation was Ethereum, which all of you must have heard of. Now, Ethereum is a protocol or technology which is giving you an ability to write your business use cases in the form of smart contracts. Now, the moment you have programmability into picture, then what happened that it started becoming too generic. Now, this was the revolution that I'm talking about, and this opened, several use cases which were not thinkable earlier, and and this became fantastic. I would say fantastic tools and technology in the hands of people, where the people they are responsible for creating something, and which is good for the human society, human mankind. At the same time, people keep the control. Now, there are various terms and terminology that we will talk about today. But I was trying to give you a sense that why all this started, where all it started from, and what was the journey it traversed. And now we are at a stage beyond Ethereum. If you really see this field has matured immensely in last 7 to 8 years, and especially I would say last 4 years has been tremendous improvements in terms of various things which really are important to us. Now, they could be in terms of scalability, they could be in terms of security, they could be in terms of centralization, they could be, all these parameters. So basically, things really have been maturing. And if you really look at the current world of Web3, I would see that the applications are, business and non-business areas. Now, this could be, finance area, which is called as decentralized finance, DeFi. This could be in the area of metaverse, which itself is a completely new world, in my opinion, which is going to be a new world order in the future, because these technologies are so disruptive that they alter the way you live. Now, the potential that I'm talking about from this technology is humongous. It is not like it is not going to be giving you a slight alteration in the way you are living, but it could just go and disrupt the way you live your life completely. Now, that's the possibility that I'm looking at metaverses. Now we have got NFTs, which you must have heard of, which has been going as crazy in the market right now. And apart from these business utilities, another thing that has been happening in this space in last few years basically is there are some inherent problems that most of these chains have, because this is an evolution process. When you talk about evolution process, then what happens that there are problems which are being discovered by people while they start using it. When this technology goes for mass adoption, then a lot of things really get noticed by people where they have to solve them for it to really make it a technology for the community, the mass community. And all these things are being solved. And in that process, what is happening is that many innovators are coming forward. Many new chains are being started right now. For example, Solana, Polkadot, Cosmos, Avalanche. There are many blockchains which are coming up nowadays, who are being very specific in terms of what they are solving. Now there is always a question that can we solve all these problems at a time? I think those are deep discussions, but in my opinion, I think we are definitely moving towards a space where most of these technologies are going to be coexisting. Now, once that happens, then of course the next stage of Web3, it comes. How do you really make this a cohesive system where it doesn't matter whether you are on this chain or that chain, but then to the end user, this does not mean much of a different thing being here or there. Now that's where the interoperability comes, where can you talk between these two chains? Can these chains talk with respect to specific business use cases, or can there be a general interoperability where messages can go from here to there? And one thing you have to understand, that most of these technologies are built on differing technologies, very different technologies. So I think this is a matter of, I would say, research, and this is a matter of lot of sharp minds working in this space and trying to solve these problems. So I think if it is making sense, Dhruv, if there is any question which people are asking, you can please put that to me before I move forward from here.
All right, hello. So far, I have been receiving a few questions in my personal chat box, and few questions are from our community. So I will keep that for later. But would you agree to the fact that this is one question? So when we transition from Web 2 to Web 3, would you agree to the fact that users have more control over their data and how it is being shared?
No, absolutely. I think that is one of the most promising offers from Web3, is that users have control. See, what really happens in Web3 space, that everybody has got an identity. And so if you really look at any blockchain for that matter, what happens that your identity is your cryptographic hash, or I would say cryptographic identity, where you have got a public hash key and your private hash key. Now, this public hash key and private hash key basically are important. Public key is your identity to the world, and the private key is your kind of password, where you can go and do something unless you certify yourself or verify yourself by giving your private key, you cannot transact. Now, once this happens, the data that you create, for example, there are many platforms which are being created right now where you could go and content platform, for example, where you go and create content and you get rewarded for that content creation. So I very firmly believe that Web3 is giving the power in the hands of the community. Now, this power is given to the community in various ways. One, you own your data. For example, you have your NFT. Now, you are not keeping this NFT with anybody else. This NFT is in your wallet, and you can use this, you can sell it, you can give it to somebody, and nobody can come and question you, or nobody has got any rights or any mechanism to come and take your NFT unless they take your password. Now, if you compare this with the centralized system today in Web2 systems, what really happens that there you are keeping your assets into the central entity's database. Now, you may have your own password and ID, I agree, but then the person who is maintaining that database, that person will have the master credentials on that database. So if that person wants to do anything, you don't have any control. Now, that's the difference I'm talking about. That is, aspect number one. Aspect number two here is basically and I was giving this reference in one of my other talks earlier, where, what happens if you really look at startup companies today, when these startup companies are coming, they are being formed. One of the things which is very important is for them to parameters such as DAUs, MAUs, these are daily active users, monthly active users. And these guys, basically, once you acquire customers, users on your platform, then what happens that basically your valuation goes up, shoots up. But when you say, for example, you get acquired, or when you get kind of, valued in the, the business ecosystem, the guys who came in the beginning to support you, they are not going to be benefited by that in any way. Now, if you look at the Web3 space, in Web3 space, people, whoever is contributing to the ecosystem or that application network, everybody is in some way or the other going to get benefited. And that is not only reward in terms of cash, but that comes in the form of ownership of the company. Now, this ownership can come in various ways. I am not getting into that right now, but the opportunity to provides you, apart from having full control on your data, is something Web3 provides. I don't think you can get that in any condition in Web2 space. If I answered that question through.
Yes, sir, definitely. So we do have another question in our chat box here from a user going by the name MUP. So regardless, the question is, does Web3 always involve cryptocurrency?
Going on this, and I think if you really go and look at the literature, you will find various things. I think primarily Web3 is about ownership, and ownership is definitely controlled by you having no central entity, and you having control of your credentials, your private key, basically. So I think cryptocurrencies, and if you look at these systems, basically, I think crypto systems definitely become the first candidate for these kind of systems. Now, let us also understand why are these cryptocurrencies, so important, basically. So cryptocurrencies are basically a mechanism to transfer value, okay, in any ecosystem. If you look at Ethereum, if you look at Polkadot, you will understand what I'm saying. These cryptocurrencies, basically, these tokens, these are a mechanism to create value and capture value, and of course, distribute this value to the creators. Now, so this becomes, in my opinion, this becomes one of the most important aspect of Web3 space, because that's how Web3 is, system, such as you have got, AI and ML, where the machine learning part plays a big role. especially in terms of the data which is being collected. How do you really analyze those data points? Then you have got IoT, devices from where a lot of data points come and they become part of the system. So I think primarily, in my opinion, and that's what is my thinking here, my understanding here, that of course blockchains are one of the prime enablers of the Web3, and but then of course this will be supplemented by several other technologies to make sense and to really make it something which is useful to the community in their real day-to-day lives. And there are many such examples. For example, I'll give you an example of an agriculture system. Now, in agriculture system, what happens that if you have heard of organic farming, organic farming needs you to maintain that organic nature of all the inputs that really happen in the whole crop life cycle. Now, this could be what kind of fertilizer you are using, what kind of water you are using for irrigation, what kind of seeds you are using. All those things are there. Now, the question is that there are many data points here which are very important, and all these data points are captured through IoT sensors. And these IoT sensors are, these IoT data from these IoT sensors, they come to the blockchain network. They get stored in the ledger, distributed ledger, in such a way that nobody can come and change these data points later. You cannot come and today your data shows that you have not used organic fertilizer, and that gets stored and that gets validated by 5 nodes or 10 nodes, whatever nodes you're talking about. And this data gets stored in the ledger. Tomorrow, nobody can come and go and change this data, right? So what happens that if this gets stored, then it's written in, on completely, fixed, I would say, an unalterable state. Okay. So now there are different use cases where I will see that various technologies coming into picture and making it a truly, I would say, a truly useful, ecosystem for us to kind of, leverage it, if that makes sense. Dhruv?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So this answers the question. So I think we can move ahead with the session.
Excellent. So now I think we have talked about the way it has started from Web 1, Web 2, and I think many of you may not be there when these things were happening earlier with timeline. But then I think it is very important for you to understand the concept. Now let us come to what does it really mean? Now, if you are a student, and I believe many of you would be here, what does it really mean for you? Why should you care about it, right? So let me go a little bit deeper into that. So what happens today, if you look at Web 2 ecosystem, so there are different technology stacks. Now these technology stacks could be, the front end layer, then you have got the middleware, and then you have got the database layer. Now these 3 stacks we talk about. And there is definitely a lot of, a lot of opportunities in all these areas. You could be a database developer, you could be a middleware developer, or you could be a front-end developer, right? But when you look at, compare this with Web3, now many things are going to be common, such as your front-end piece will be more or less common. I mean, you could be developing your stuff in React, Angular, JavaScript, all those things will be there. But you could also, use some database in your, I will take an example of a complete, full stack development using Web3 maybe in some time. But right now, to start with here, so you could have a database also where you could go and keep your some of your data points, which are very, big size data, which you don't want to keep them on, chains directly, because that is very expensive, and we'll talk about that as well. But then, yeah, you could keep some offline data, and maybe create a hash of that and keep it, keep the hash in the network, so that keeping the hash is a little inexpensive for you. Otherwise, it becomes too expensive doing those transactions. And then there is third piece, which is important in this whole case, where how do you? And then, of course, one thing is that you have a smart contract, which we talked about, and we will talk a little bit about that in some time. But then you need to have a mechanism from your front end to kind of go and access your smart contracts through some mechanisms, basically. Okay. Now, I think IBC Media is hosting a series of events next week, starting I think Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I will definitely recommend. And as you can see from my background, Polkadot, which is one of the, I would say, one of the most, I would say, promising, I would say, framework for creating, blockchains, is our headline sponsor for IBC Media. And I think very important for you to understand and appreciate this technology. And I'll talk about some, programming languages and all that, which are important here. But I think more than that, I think as a developer, as a student, I believe that if you start working in this tech stack at the earliest, that is going to be, very, very, I would say, beneficial for you, because I think it takes time for you to get into that mindset of, understanding this whole ecosystem. So the earlier you start into this, because I think one thing, in my opinion, that somebody asked me a question in my previous talk as to will Web3 replace Web2? And it's a very difficult question to answer. And even if I think many technologies, they remain side by side, and the people start seeing value, pro and cons in both the technologies in some time, and then depending upon the value, the merit that both of these technologies will offer, my understanding is that Web3 will be a dominant technology in next few years. I think if you really see next 5 years, I would say Web3 will become a dominant technology space. And it is always good to prepare yourself, from the early beginning. Okay. Now, what happens? What does it mean? That you cannot go and work in every area. So you really have to kind of choose your interest, first of all. Are you, which side of the blockchain you really think that you want to work? And then especially, I think your programming languages, especially in the smart contract, that is something which will need to, you need to master, number one. Number two, that the understanding of the whole ecosystem, how do things work here? That is also very important. What are the architectural considerations? How do you architect a solution in Web3 vis-a-vis the architectural considerations in Web2? I think those things are, I think somebody is interested in getting into the solution architecture space. Like Dhruv was mentioning, I have done my AWS professional level certification, and I can tell you that, these architectural considerations are very, very important. You need to understand what are the tools and, the technologies which exist in front of you, and what should be your choice. Now, all these things just cannot happen in a day. So you will have to kind of get into all these things. Now, I'll come back to, so Dhruv, any questions so far? I think I wanted to take questions from all of you so that it will drive me to answer your questions more, I think, instead of just me talking about things.
All right, so we do have one question from Ms. Neha Latha Reddy. So she wants to know if we have any certification from these sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the IBC media sessions that we are doing next week, I think we have got a purpose there. The purpose is to have you guys get introduced to what is important. And I think Polkadot ecosystem, I'll talk briefly about Polkadot. So Polkadot, before getting to Polkadot, let me tell you about some other blockchains that exist today. So if you really see, Ethereum came first, and if you know the Ethereum platform, it has got massive ecosystem. Now, these companies, these applications we call DApps, distributed, decentralized applications. And these distributed and decentralized applications, basically, they can come from any area. They could come from, finance in DeFi space. They could come in NFTs. They could, they could come in from metaverse area. They could be from gaming. They could be sports. They could be anything. They could be betting. They could be insurance. They could be agriculture. They could be supply chain. You name the business area, and there are applications on that. Now, these DApps basically are very important. But what really happens is that when all these transactions, they try to find their place in the block that is being created on Ethereum. Now, when the blocks are being created on Ethereum, then all of these transactions, when the ecosystem starts growing, then what happens that you have limited space in the chain, in the blocks, and people go and try to put more fuel for the inclusion of their transaction. When that happens, then what really is the outcome? The outcome is the transaction becomes very costly. And that is one of the problems that Ethereum has been facing. And that's where they are in the process of ETH2 migration, wherein their ETH, earlier Ethereum used to be work on proof of work model. Now they are shifting to proof of stake. And of course, this has been going on for quite some time. But I think this year it will be they will be merging their chains to and converting to proof of stake model. And the question is that that's one of the ways in which Ethereum is solving this problem. And then there are other layer twos which really have come into picture. These layer twos have their different other ways of solving these problems. Now there are different chains, as I talked about, like Solana, Avalanche. There are many other 40 plus chains which really have come into existence today, and all of them have their value proposition. Now the question here is that where does Polkadot come into picture? So what Polkadot really has offered right now, this is a framework, or I would say Polkadot prefers to call itself as a layer 0 protocol, in which you have you have a possibility, or you have an opportunity to go and create your own chain, basically. So how is the chain differentiated? So chain is differentiated based on certain conditions, like what is your consensus mechanism. Now, to go a little bit deeper into that, so what happens consensus mechanism? So consensus mechanism is a process which which gives a tool in the hands of the validators nodes to decide how do you select a block, how do you select the next block. Okay, now in proof of work, that's a little different. In proof of work, which was the consensus mechanism for Bitcoin, which is basically, so what exactly there it happens that everybody is given a problem to solve. And when the particular node is being able to solve that problem, then that person is and he solves or she solves the problem the first, then that is taken as the next block. Now if that person is genuine, he has not manipulated, then others will come and verify that. Now this is a consensus mechanism in which people come and vote, and once you get the majority, then the block is taken as the final, and all those things happen there. I'm not going to get into that. But proof of work is a process in which the consensus mechanism is very, very expensive, very, very energy intensive, and there has been a lot of debate, and there has been a lot of discussion on how do you make the blockchain a green initiative in which so much of energy is not wasted there. That is where proof of stake model came. Proof of stake model is a different model in which what happens, depending upon the tokens of a particular chain that you possess with you, you will be given you will be given rights to vote in mechanism, this proposal mechanism and the approval mechanism. Now that really makes it that makes it little easy on energy, where the energy consumption becomes less. And this has been a proven model. Most of the blockchains right now, what you see which are coming up, they have proof of stake model, and there are various variations in those models. So I'll not go into that today, but then there are different variations of all these proof of stake models. But then Polkadot is basically the main offer here is that Polkadot gives you an interoperability where you can go and create a parachain, and this parachain can have its own consensus, or you could also decide to go for the security that the Polkadot offers through its relay chain. You can do that also. Otherwise, what you can do, you can have your own consensus mechanism, and different parachains can talk to each other through various frameworks, such as there is one framework which is called Axiom, which is called cross consensus mechanism, like that. So something which is very interesting. So in my opinion, Polkadot is going to be one of the protocols in future which is first of all making new blockchain so easy, number one. And number two is basically could you basically enable interoperability? Could you really go and have different networks talk to each other. Now, that is something, in my opinion, is the biggest thing this field has to achieve in the next few years. And then there are a lot of other technologies which are coming here right now, such as there is a technology called zero knowledge proof, ZKP. Now, this ZKP is basically a fantastic tool, and it's a mathematical tool in which the validator need not be going and doing all those transactions to validate whether the person who has done it is correct or not. So I think this makes the validation process very easy, and many rollups, they are in the process of building protocols and solutions based on ZK model. So I think a lot of things are happening. So I hope I'm not confusing you. So basically, the point is that all these L1s and L2s, they have their own value propositions. Polkadot, as I was saying, they have become very innovative, and the solution they have really put forth in front of us is very, very innovative, and that makes things so easy. And it's just a module based, component based, where if you really don't want to be very specific for you can just go and pick up the modules from them, which they call pallets. Take those pallets, include them in your runtime, and your blockchain is ready. I mean, it is that easy. Now, if you really want to have some custom solutions, custom logic for you, you can always go and modify them. So, in a nutshell, in next week, we are going to be having 3 sessions, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I think my team will be sharing the links in this chat also, but they would have shared in our Twitter and other places. But please do attend this, and I think this will be a golden opportunity for you to get exposure to these things. Coming back to the question that Drew asked earlier, basically is that shall we be getting certificate? Yes, but it is not only certificate which is important. I will also encourage you to learn this technology, build something, and be a part of the IBC hackathon that we are running right now. I'm sure you will be having tremendous experience. We have got our Discord channel and Discord server. Please join our Discord server. Please, my team, please share the Discord links in the chat box. Please join that Discord. There will be, eminent list of mentors and technical experts there who will be helping you learn this technology. So, guys, I think don't shy away. Please get into, and I think this will be one of your, golden opportunities. Dhruv?
Yes, definitely. So we do have more questions in our chat box here. Vajid here wants to know what types of businesses are going to thrive on Web3 and what businesses will falter, and if Polkadot is better than Ethereum. These are 2 questions from Vajid's side.
So I think, it's in my opinion, it is very true, as you said. Wherever there is a trust problem, Web3 is going to win, in my opinion. So whenever you are required to depend on a third-party utility, for example, I was reading somewhere, and I think this was said by Vitalik in one of the posts I saw on LinkedIn or somewhere, that he said that don't let Uber fire the drivers, but let drivers fire the Uber. I mean, this is a controversial statement, but I'm just quoting, somebody somewhere I saw. I don't own this statement, but what I'm trying to say here is that the ownership, the central systems which they have, and if anywhere, for example, the banking transaction. So I'll give you an example. There is a company called Ripple. Now, if you really talk about inter-country money transfers, which is a very, very painful process today. And, this transfer takes several days. It really costs you a bomb of money, to the extent of, I would say, I will not quote a number here, but then huge percentage of the money that you transfer. And it's so cumbersome. Now, technology such as anything which really is on Web3 is very simple. 2 people have wallets. There are the fiat on-ramp and off-ramp. You just, for example, I have dollars here, I have rupees here in India. I'll just go and convert to, cryptocurrency, for example. That could be anything. Or I could just convert it to a stable coin, which has got fair stability in terms of its pricing. I'll transfer it to you who is staying in Kenya, for example. You get that money in your wallet in minutes. and there is an off-ramp to fiat utility there, where you just go and take the money to, in your local currency there. So imagine the comfort it takes. I think this is the power of technology, which unfortunately we have made so complicated in the Web2 world and before. And the reason why we had made it complicated, because there did not exist a technology like this which makes things easy. See, I think again, if you go and look at from the time when the steam engine came, then you have got all these. Look at the industrial revolution happened. The railway tracks came into existence. I mean, look at it. I mean, these are all innovations. In my opinion, blockchain is such innovation which has got the potential to go and, as I said, it will not alter your life, but it could disrupt your life. Now, coming back to the point, what all business use cases? I think it could be anything, but it has to stand the test of time, where people really, and I am also of the opinion that when the technology is in the earlier stage, nascent stage, what happens that there are so many, use cases which start, coming into the space where people don't think anything and just they go and implement blockchain. No, this may not be the case. You really have to see whether you need a blockchain. And then you will see the value of blockchain, being, coming to you. Okay. And say, for example, if you remember, many of you around 2000, maybe around, I would say 20 years back, when the, .com started, you go and see left and right, everybody starting, .com company. Did all of them survive? No, of course not. Some of them survived and they became massive, right? And then only we saw the .com crash. If you go and Google it, you will find what I'm talking about. Similar to that here, if you really see right now, a lot of people are trying to do things here. Many of them make sense. Many of them do not make sense. Now, the people who are creating real value, they will survive. It does not matter which use case you are solving. For sure, use cases need to be important, but you as an entity, you need to be creating value. And your value creation need to be futuristic. You need to understand that people need to understand. This needs to be something like, not like done today and dusted. No, it really has to create, value in the long term. That is number one. Now, coming back to your second question, is Polkadot better than Ethereum? I think that's a very subjective question. I don't think anybody can answer that. Is Ethereum better or Polkadot better? But I think what Ethereum has done definitely cannot be discounted. At the same time, what Polkadot is doing right now is I would say fantastic direction in which they are trying to make things easier for people to create. Otherwise, earlier, if you really were going to create a network, a blockchain, it used to be a massive effort. Now that really has been, in my opinion, made much simpler by Polkadot. And the second thing I'm very excited about Polkadot is the interoperability that they bring into the equation. Now, interoperability, if you understand this space, is happening by means of bridges. Now, these bridges are basically, you have your token or currency in one chain, you need to take it to some other chain, you create a bridge funnel in between. And in this process, what happens that there is a lot of technicalities there. I will not go into that right now. But then there is a mechanism in which you go and lock some token here, and then you go and into other chain. You kind of go and release the equivalent amount of token there, and then that token becomes, active on the other chain. You do whatever you want to. When you want to withdraw your money, then that token gets burnt, and this token gets back to you, and something like this. But in the whole this bridging technology piece, what happens that there are a lot of security lapses. And, if everybody starts creating bridges, and I have written on my LinkedIn sometime back, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months back, if everybody starts creating bridge solutions, then these bridges solutions, and if they are not audited, if their code is not secure, then it is it's all hackable. And we have seen several bridges being hacked in the past. So I think if you create a solution, if something comes from Polkadot-like company, which is a very safe bridge and intercommunication, then imagine, what kind of impetus it is going to give to the whole space. So I think that's what is going to be my response, Sneha. I think, Dhruv.
All right. So while we are at the topic, you just mentioned trustless. Mm-hmm. So while I'm pretty sure trustless and not untrustworthy are two different terms. Could you elaborate on what we mean when we say trustless in a system?
So I think trustless in the blockchain context, what it really means is that you don't need to trust anyone, basically. It's not that there is no trust. Trust is there, but your trust is dependent on machine and code. Your trust is dependent on a smart contract. To write a smart contract that I give something to Dhruv, and then Dhruv gives me 10 rupees. Now, I don't need to depend on Dhruv, and Dhruv does not need to depend on me. But both of them are depending upon a smart contract. Okay. Now, that's where you don't need to trust on any entity for that matter. Now, there are, if you understand finance a little bit here, so what happens basically that you have got various types of contracts between two parties, two entities. Now, these contracts are basically, there is always a term in finance, and the people who know finance, they will appreciate what I'm saying, that there is a term called counterparty default, where, I give you something and you have to give me something back. Or, for example, we get into a swap arrangement where I say, okay, fine. Or, I get into some arrangement with you where I say that, okay, I will buy from you, corn at some rate 6 months down the line, at some rate. Okay. Now, today's corn rate is 100 rupees. And if the rate of corn goes to 200 in 6 months, if I as a buyer, basically I get benefited. Now, if corn price gets, 50 rupees, then I as a buyer, because I have committed 100 rupees price, then, I will say, okay, I have to still pay 100 rupees. Now, these are the contracts basically between the two parties. Now, what happens typically, these are, and this happens quite often, that, when the day 6 months after comes, then the person who is, losing, he'll say, no, I will not honor this. And there is no legal, and legal frameworks are pretty, I would say, easy to kind of, maybe ignore here. But in the Web3 world, what happens? These are all tied by a smart contract. Now, in such a way that nobody can default, nobody can go back once, and that is where you have to trust the code. Now, if the smart contracts are written in the right way, all the possibilities. For example, I'll give you another example, Dhruv. So, if you look at the insurance, what happens that if you go and look at, I am an insurance company, and I am, you are coming and doing crop insurance with me. That if flood happens this year, I will give you 1 lakh rupee. Okay. Now there is no cheating here. There is no playing with the things here. So now, if rain happens, if flood happens, that data somehow gets through, get to the blockchain through the help of oracles. Now, oracles is something very different, very broad topic, vast topic. I will not cover today. Maybe we could have more sessions here through in future where I can cover some more in-depth topics there. But then the data comes to the blockchain saying that, oh, flood has happened. Now, flood has happened. Nobody else needs to come and certify this. Flood has happened, and the smart contract gets executed, and the money goes to the bank account of the person who is insured. No trust. You don't need to trust on any company. In lieu of that, today, if you go and look at the insurance companies, they'll all advertise you several beautiful things in the beginning. But when the time comes for claim process is very difficult for most of these insurance companies. Nobody would want to give you a single rupee just like that. So the point here is that the trust is in the system, not in a central entity. That's what I think is important here, Dhruv.
That explains it very well. So exactly the question that Vajit asked, so we have added to the answer of the same question. So what the examples you just described, so that two more industries which I personally could point out. There is insurance you just mentioned, and the crop example is basically, I think, that falls under future derivatives market where these problems are very common. So Vajit, to answer your question, we have two more industries for the question you asked. All right. So we have a few more questions. These are all in my private inbox and community questions. So we'll start taking them all together. If we good to go with questions, sir?
Sure.
All right. Okay. So this is from a student, the unknown name, but they want to know, just like how C and C++ and Python, they are quintessential languages for budding developers when someone is starting off in the programming developing industry. These are the few languages which are a mandate sort of a thing for them to learn. So at the pace we are at, what we are going with Web3 and blockchain, do you think in the coming years, Rust and Solidity and the smart contract languages would be as quintessential as C and Python?
I think,
As what
to me, I think Rust is more of a low-level programming language, which really has, which gives you an ability to go and, take control of several parameters at the system level, which is the beauty of Rust. And I am myself not a Rust developer, but I think I understand Rust to a great extent. But then at the same time, Rust also gives you an ability to have or include many high-level. Now Rust, and that is where Rust has been used by several of the protocols, such as Polkadot Substrate is based on Rust. Then you have got Solana is based on Rust. Then you have got Near protocol. So there are, I think, Rust is definitely getting a lot of adoption. Now, if you come to Solidity has been made easier to understand. I think it is more, I would say, business user friendly, and it's a very I would say similar to JavaScript kind of language. If you are good in JavaScript, I think it becomes much more easier for you to do work in Solidity. So I think, in my opinion, I think these programming languages are going to be very important. But at the same time, there is another thing that I want to say, that the trend is going in this industry where at the end of the day, you will have compilers for most of these blockchains, which can compile various programming languages into an executable which can be run. So I think, in my opinion, if you really ask me, and that's my perspective on this, that in future programming languages will not be that important, because I think at the end of the day, blockchain has got an objective where it needs to take the technology to the wider community, and I think they will not be forcing you to learn for sure new things all the time, but it will be more in the lines of what languages exist today. So I think it's a mixed answer, in my opinion. But then, yeah, for sure, Rust and Solidity are very, very important.
All right, thank you. So, a same user by the name of MUP is asking, this is looks like a good question here. So, considering that public and private keys are self-signed and are not issued by certifying authorities, so in blockchain, when we sign transactions with private keys, are they valid in the court of law? Looks like a gray area.
Okay, interesting question, MUP. So I think right now, if you really see the regulations aspect of blockchain is something which is still developing, and I think we still don't have. I think the regulation hasn't really caught up with the whole technology, in my opinion. So the question here is that you cannot mix the legalities here with the public and private key. At the end of the day, public and private key is basically technological innovation. The legality of that the question does not arise. Such as, for example, it is like the person who has the private key. Okay, he is the owner of the asset. Now, the question whether the legal court will accept that or not, that will not really be important in this situation, because if I have the private key, I am the owner. I think nobody can. I'm not going to be displaying this to anybody. This is my way of controlling my asset. However, I think where the regulations are important is basically, how do you treat these assets, whether these are, the currencies, and there is a lot of debate, which is going on in the industry, whether the cryptocurrencies should be considered, at par with the fiat currencies. There are, most of the countries, they are coming up with their own, digital currencies. You must have heard of the term CBDCs. Basically, they are important. Then, if you are holding cryptocurrencies, then will this be considered as a currency, or will this be considered as an asset? I think there are many questions. Those are in those lines. I don't think a lot of question will be in the form of whether the private key is accepted or not. I mean, that really doesn't matter, in my opinion. I think if you have the private key, it is your thing. I don't think anybody can come and tell you that whether it is legal or not. So that thing, in my opinion, does not make sense.
Okay. So just a quick follow-up about what we just discussed. So do you think this is the reason why the cryptocurrency Monero went through so much trouble recently because they have a private ledger?
No, I think so. That's a little different thing. So, look, if you right now look at and for the benefit of the people here, so whatever you do transact in the blockchain world, everything is public. Okay, it only does not say it's called pseudo anonymous if you use the term, where it's not really anonymous in true sense. But then, say for example, if you go and do some transaction using some cryptocurrency. Now, if people want to trace it, so it will go and trace back to the point where the fiat currency was brought into the system to buy some cryptocurrency, and from there, all these things happened. Okay, so basically, you could easily be traced. Okay, second thing is that once you have these currencies, there are a lot of analysis companies are there in the blockchain where they go and do a lot of analysis on these data points. In fact, many of these companies are also working with the government agencies in which these analyses are shared with them, and these companies do keep a watch on which public key is doing how much transactions, and if there are ways in which it can be caught, it can be. So I think that's something which is important. Now, coming back to the Monterey, basically what happened that they have gone ahead and they have tried to make sure that even if you by use of technology, that even if you do transactions, you still will be it will be kind of anonymous, where is it completely anonymous? I don't think so, but then I think to a large extent the identity is hidden there. So I think this has got both the sides of takers in the industry. I think many people from the user side, they liked it, but then again, many countries, they had problem with this, because I think this really because as good players, we are so bullish about blockchain. At the same time, there are many people who are kind of doing things which should not be done. But again, you cannot stop that. You have good things and bad things with every technology. So I think you should definitely take note of that.
Yes. Right. So that clears up the Monero topic here. Mm-hmm. So we'll take another question. We were talking about different consensus protocols and how they are working. So also just, okay, before this, Vajid has another question. What Polkadot is trying to solve, I think.
Yeah, so I think we already talked about it, Vajid. So Polkadot is a very, very interesting, project in which they give you an ability to create your own blockchain, business application blockchain in a very, very simplified way. Number one. Number two, they are making the interoperability problem much easier to solve. I think these are the two, and of course they have several other things. I'll not talk about that, but then these are the two most important problems that I think they are trying to solve.
Okay.
Yep.
So next up would be keeping in mind the ESG motive, which has gained a lot of traction these days. So it is about being environmentally friendly, etc. So do you think the newer blockchains like Polkadot have an edge over Bitcoin when it comes to ESG?
I think look at like this. Environment is very, very important, and Bitcoin has a problem there. But then there are, if you look at Bitcoin, there are different ways in which the mining is happening now, where the environmentally sustainable way, different types of green energies, they are being adopted there. So I think Bitcoin is also definitely trying its level best. That community is very, very active to make it environmentally sustainable. Of course, the governance part and all those things, so I think they have pretty their own framework. So I don't think, and I think the system has worked for so many years. Basically, if you look at 2009 to we are talking about 13 years, it really hasn't had any failure so far. As compared to that, of course, Polkadot is a much newer platform, and why Polkadot only? I think any newer blockchains which are being created right now, I think ESG has been in very, very critical consideration for all of these blockchains, and otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. So, in my opinion, while Bitcoin started with something, and they have the credit to that to themselves, but then over the time, they also have realized some of these issues, and they're working hard to solve those problems. But at the same time, all newer protocols are very, very sensitive towards these ESG concerns.
Okay, that answers it. To follow up, there is another follow from Vajid itself. It's tell something about Polkadot next proof of concept POC 2.
Okay, so I think we will definitely what I will do right now. So Wazir, so we have I think very specific session next week. 3 sessions I'm talking about. We will be covering about all of these topics in those sessions. I think today we may not really have time to go into all of these topics for today, but then I will encourage and to everybody right now that the session that we are arranging, we will be going into much more deep and depth into Polkadot. So please attend that, and we will be covering not only this consensus, but then we will be talking about several other things which will be very, very I would say very, very informative for you, and you could start working on Polkadot substrate ecosystem.
All right. So we have 2 more questions here.
So how are we doing with respect to time, Dhruv? So
time, we are looking at 6 or 7 right now. So
okay. So I think we had asked for 1 hour. So I think we have. If people are fine, then maybe we can take a couple of more questions, and and then maybe we can wind up.
All right. So I'll go ahead with the questions here. So we spoke about ESG. We spoke about the consensus protocols. So a follow-up to that would be, does the consensus of the respective protocol, does it determine the functionality and the quality of the smart contract being deployed on that particular network?
Not really. So I think consensus is a mechanism by which the validators or the system chooses its next block. So that's the consensus mechanism, and this could be anything, such as proof of work, proof of stake, proof of authority. There are many things. There are delegated proof of stake. Again, so maybe we may not be able to go into all of these things. I will be having some Twitter spaces separately offline to maybe cover some of these specific topics. But then I think consensus mechanism is the way to find its next block. And if you look at the smart contract quality, I think that's again a very, very, I would say, debatable topic. Smart contracts are as good as you write them. If you go to any chain for that matter, be it Ethereum, be it Polkadot, be it other chains, they provide you an ability to include the business functions in the smart contract in some programming language based on. Okay, but then you are writing smart contracts on that. How much how much good auditing you are able to do for your smart contract, basically, I think that is important. I think I don't think there is a direct correlation between these two things, in my opinion.
Okay, so as far as I can understand, the consensus the major differentiating factors would be the fees charged on the network and the transaction speed. I think that those are more focused areas for consensus.
Absolutely. So again, so if you create, like if you are depending on proof of work, then you definitely are talking about something. If you are talking about proof of stake, you're talking about something. Now, see, the point is that there are some pros and cons between these things. Like proof of work is the most decentralized. If you really see, the moment you kind of come to proof of stake, where validator nodes are little less, then you kind of compromise on your decentralization there. Now, the question is that what should be the ideal balance? What should be the ideal number? What really gives me confidence that this is something good enough for my safety and security? I think those things are definitely always you have to set yourself as to, depending upon if you're talking about a financial application, that may need something else. If you're talking about a supply chain application, that could be something different. So I think it depends on the application also, in my opinion. But again, it's a decision we take based on how much decentralized I really want to be.
Right. I think it comes back to the trifecta of decentralization, privacy, and your scalability. I think this is a popular topic in the blockchain community, the trifecta. All right. So moving forward, this is another question where, in spite of such massive development happening in Web3 and blockchain space, we saw Facebook turn their name to Meta and so many big corporates coming into this space. Why do the markets seem to be so speculative? Do you think we are at a nascent stage still?
Absolutely. I think if you look at the Gartner hype cycle curve, right now we are in the suspicion zone, in my opinion, or some zone, they give some name to that. But the question is that the mass adoption hasn't started. Everybody is trying desperately here. So, and I think everybody is trying desperately to the extent that big corporations also, they don't want to be left out. And I think if you look at, there are so many banks which are coming together. They are making consortium. They are trying blockchain. The Visa has done something. Even, all these guys are doing something or the other. So the question is that, one of the most beautiful things I think about blockchain is that the technology, and of course, technology has got some predominant applications. But at the same time, the another thing that you talked about, Dhruv, is speculation. I think you cannot stop the human mind, basically the nature. Whenever you get an opportunity where you can go and make some money, people will not leave that. I mean, if you look at two exchanges, and if same stock is listed on the two, people don't leave the opportunity for arbitrage there, even for 5 rupees, right? I mean, that's how it happens. So speculation is something which, and I think I had commented on some of the LinkedIn post maybe a few days back this week, that I think speculation is very, very prevalent in the conventional world also. It's not like it's only here. So speculation, I think we should definitely look at these cryptocurrencies or blockchain as a technology much more than a speculative tool, in my opinion. I think if you are looking at speculation only, then I think we are doing injustice to this technology. I think, and at the end of the day, in my opinion, in few years, speculation will become less factor here, and the real usage of technology will come out victorious.
All right. So we'll just take one last question since we are running out of time. Amgoth Anil Kumar has sent me a message here. Which theme will be more relevant to Ethereum?
So I did not get the question quite. So which theme means?
I think he means to ask if there is DeFi or NFT, which is the most relevant use case that way.
Okay. Now I think that's. I think it depends. DeFi has got its own applications. Then we have got NFTs are quite in. I would say people are doing a lot of work in NFT. All these are very important themes, in my opinion. I think one cannot be preferred to the other, but at the same time, I think what you should also look at is that what really interests you. Okay, what interests you, and what you feel excited about. I think go for that. Everything what themes we have given in our hackathon, I think all of them are very, very important and pertinent. One of the things that we are trying to do in IBC is basically help you guys build it. And the IBC media is coming up and will be coming up with several of these initiatives in which we will be talking to you. We will be arranging some expert sessions. We will be arranging, workshops. We will be, engaging you. So please participate in these things and take full advantage of this. And that's our vision is to democratize this technology to all of you who are into your at whatever stage of your career. I think you definitely need to take a very serious look at this and start learning Polkadot, for example. Here, get into. There are so many videos available on Rust on the internet, YouTube. Go and look at them. Spend some time and adopt some skill. Try to build something in the near future. For example, you may not be able to build massively complex application in next 10 days time, but then take a look at some simple small application what you really can do. And I think this could be from any theme, doesn't matter. And I think I will encourage you to look at Polkadot, go and read about them, go and watch some videos on Polkadot. What are they trying to do? Then you will start getting a sense of what I am talking about here. But try to build something, and we promise you that if we find if you find merit in what you are doing, what you are putting effort, we are more than willing to help you and take that journey forward.
Yeah. All right. I think we're summing up the workshop. Any message you would like to give? And I will conclude this.
No, I think absolutely. I think I love talking to all of you guys, and I personally believe that blockchain is going to be a future. Lot of technological innovations will keep coming. So my request to all of you is that get the foundational knowledge. Okay, make sure that you understand the foundation of blockchain. How does it work? What are the technological components? What should you learn in? Then only you are a part of the journey. Otherwise, you are not a part of the journey. So the earlier you come into this space, the better it is for you. You are studying. You may be studying some engineering, computer science, or I know there are many engineering colleges where people are studying, blockchain, AI, ML, all of that. But my suggestion to you is that put some personal investment, time and effort in this, and get to some level, and then you start, floating around, floating along with the technology. So all the very best. And I will definitely have more sessions with all of you. I will be having more interactions with you in future as well. So all the best, happy journey and happy learning.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Praveen, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. And I think this is what all the IBC and Polkadot events are about, and they have been about. They've been about sharing knowledge and innovative ideas with one another. So I did see a lot of inquisitive audience members in our comment section. They were wondering about Polkadot and the development side of it, etc. So I have posted the links for the workshops in the coming week. It is on 5th, it is on 7th, and it is on 9th. So the links are in the chat box, and these workshops basically will help you answer all the questions we saw in the comment box and in the community here. So that is all from IBC side. And also you can follow us on our social channels, join our Discord. The link is in the chat box again. And you can visit our website, ibc.media, for further updates. And that's all from our side. Thank you so much for joining in.
Excellent, guys. Have a great weekend and, happy learning. Thank you.
Thank you.